I thought this week the Lord He dealt with me all week to read this few scriptures, and I thought a lot of times as we grow up as children, we're taught all about what Easter is and what all happened on Easter, and tend to dress up, and a lot of us, so we get caught up in buying new clothes and stuff for Easter, but we never hear. I can remember back when I was a boy, we never did hear Good Friday mentioned. Actually, I was actually grown and working before I can even remember hearing the word Good Friday. But I thought today that's exactly what I want to talk about is Good Friday. And we know that Sunday, that this coming Sunday, we celebrate that Jesus rose from the dead, and how they went to the tomb and there wasn't nothing there but his grave clothes. But I thought if everybody that wants to read along with me could get your Bibles and turn to the 23rd chapter of Luke. I want us to begin there, and I'll give you a few more scriptures to read because you can't really get the whole picture and the whole story, I guess, of lack of better words, if you don't read all four Gospels. But I thought we'll start in chapter 23 of Luke, and verse 1. And it said, the whole multitude of them arose and led him unto Pilate. I thought this started this morning sometime around 2 o'clock in the morning. And they began to accuse him, saying, we found this fella perverting the nation, forbidding to give tribute to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ the King. And Pilate asked him, saying, art thou the King of the Jews? And he answered him and said, thou sayest it. Then said Pilate to the chief priests and to the people, I have found no fault in this man. And they were the more fierce, saying, he stirreth up the people, teaching throughout all Jewry, beginning from Galilee to this place. And when Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked whether the man were a Galilean. And as soon as he knew that he belonged unto Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who himself also was at Jerusalem at the time. And when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceedingly glad, for he was desirous to see him of a long season, because he had heard many things of him. And he hoped to have seen more miracles done by him. Then he questioned him in many words, but he answered him nothing. And the chief priests and the scribes stood and vehemently accused him, and Herod with his men of war set him at naught, and mocked him, and arrayed him with a gorgeous robe, and sent him again to Pilate. And the same day Pilate and Herod were made friends together, for before they were at enmity between themselves. And Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, said unto them, you have brought this man unto me, as one that perverteth the nation, and I, having examined him before you, have found no fault in this man, touching those things whereof you accuse him. No, nor yet Herod, for I sent you to him, and lo, nothing worthy of death is done unto him. I will therefore chastise him and release him. For of necessity he must release one unto them at the feast. And they cried out all at once, saying, away with this man, and release unto us Barabbas, who for a certain sedition made in the city, and for murder, and was cast into prison. And Pilate, therefore, willing to release Jesus, spake again to him. But they cried, saying, crucify him, crucify him. And he said unto them the third time, why, what evil have ye done? I have found no cause of death in him, and I will therefore chastise him and let him go. And they were instant with loud voices, requiring that he might be crucified. And the voices of them and of the chief priests prevailed, and Pilate gave sentence, and it should be as they required. And he released unto them that for sedition and for murder was cast into prison, whom they had desired, but he delivered Jesus to their will. And as they led him away, they laid hold upon one Simon, a Cyrenian, coming out of the country, and on him they laid the cross, that he might bear it after Jesus. And therefore followed him a great company of people, and of women, which also bewailed and lamented him. But Jesus, turning unto them, said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children, for behold, the days are coming, in the which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bare, and the paps which never gave suck. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall they be done in the dry? And there are also 2 other malefactors lived with him, to be put to death. And when they were come to the place which is called Calvary, there they crucified him, and the other on the left. Then said Jesus, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they parted his raiment and cast lots. And the people stood beholding, and the rulers also with them, deriding him, saying, He saved others. Let him save himself, if he be the Christ, the chosen of God. And the soldiers also mocked him, coming to him and offering vinegar, and saying, If thou be the King of the Jews, save thyself. And a superscription was also written over him in the letters of Greek and Latin and Hebrew, This is the King of the Jews. And one of the malefactors which were hanged railed on him, saying, If thou be Christ, save thyself and us. But the other answering rebuked him, saying, Doest not thou fear God, seeing that thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward for our deeds. But this man hath done nothing amiss. And he said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said unto him, Verily, I say unto thee, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. And it was about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in midst. And when Jesus had cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And having said thus, he gave up the ghost. And I thought if you would, you can turn with me to Psalms chapter 22. I thought David wrote nearly, I think it was 900 and some years before Christ was even born. I thought in chapter 22 and verse 1, it said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me and from the words of my roaring? If you skip down to verse 7, it said, all that see me laugh me to scorn. They shoot out the lip and they shake the head, saying, he trusted on the Lord, that he would deliver him. Let him deliver him, seeing he delighted in him. Verse 14 said, I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, and it is melted in the midst of my bowels. My strength is dried up like a potsherd. My tongue cleaveth to my jaws, and thou hast brought into me the dust of death. For dogs have compassed me in the assembly of the wicked, have enclosed me, and they pierce my hands and my feet. I may tell all my bones, and they look and stare upon me, and they part my garments among them, and cast lots upon my vesture. If you would move on over to Isaiah, we got Isaiah chapter 52, we got one verse there. Isaiah chapter 52 and 14, it said, as many were astonished at thee. His visage was so marred more than any man, and his form than the sons of men. In chapter 53 and verse 1, let's go down to verse 3. He said, he is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. And he was despised, and he was esteemed him not. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquity. And the chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with the stripes, his stripes, we're healed. Verse 7 said, he was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before his shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. Verse 10 it said, yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. Verse 11, he shall see of the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death. And he was numbered with the transgressors, and he bare the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. I thought today we don't understand just what he had to go through that we could be saved. I thought I did a study a long time ago, maybe 10 or 11 years ago, on crucifixion. I thought I wanted to know more about what my Lord done for me. And I thought back then, during the time of Christ, the first thing that they would do when somebody was to be crucified is what they did, what they said, they scourged him. And if you read in the other Gospels, you'll see that word. Luke was actually the only one that used chastised. But I thought scourge was the first thing which they usually did, and it was one of the most cruel forms of capital punishment that had ever been handed down. And I thought they used a lot of different tools when they did this. They tied them to a post would come up out of the ground. They take them into a big arena, and they would strip them off naked. And I thought they'd bind their hands to where they couldn't move. And I thought they would begin to beat them with one of the main ones that we hear about most of the time is the cat o' nine tails. It don't say that they actually used it, but that was one of the tools that they did use in that time. And it will be on like a big piece of cane or a hard piece of wood, and they'd have 9 strips of leather with bone and iron made into hooks. And I thought they also had reeds, and they would have pieces of iron inside of those reeds, that every time that they would hit whoever they were crucifying, that it would rip pieces of flesh. And we can read, just like we did right then, that David wrote that they could see on all of his bones. Isaiah wrote that his visage was more marred than any man. But the best that I could read, you couldn't even tell that he was a man from the way that he looked. But I thought he did that for me, and he took 26 strikes to the back that way and 13 to the chest. I read somewhere that 90% or 98% of the people, they didn't even live through this. But after that, they were strapped to this big piece of wood. And they were forced to pack it with a sign hanging around their neck of what kind of sin that they had committed. And they would pack that and parade them through town that everybody could see them, that they could put fear into their hearts. But I thought there was a man there that Simon, he helped Jesus bear his cross, because there ain't no doubt in my mind he was too weak. And I thought once they got him to that place that they were going, they would lay him down. And sometimes if they wanted it to last longer, they would tie their hands and their feet, because it let them endure more agony for days. It said sometimes they would just let them hang there for days. And the birds would pick their eyes out, and they'd pick at their flesh. They wanted them to endure harsh conditions. But I thought at the time when Jesus was being crucified, I thought it was almost the Passover, and they wanted it to be over really fast. I thought as I was reading that, I could see him drive them big nails in his hands. And I thought as I prayed about that, and I wondered, Lord, how in the world could you stand that? Missy's cousin is a blacksmith. And I thought I went and stayed with him one day. I called him and asked him if I could come and stay the day with him. And some archaeologists had recovered a body that had been crucified. And, you know, they did their dating back to when it was, and they figured it was at the time of Christ. And they had a full nail there that was in one of his hands. And I took that piece of paper with me. And I got him to help me, and we sat and we hammered a nail out just exactly what was on that page. And I can remember with every time that he would let me hit that, after he got it shaped, he would let me beat on it a little bit to where I could just get a feel, you know, of what he was doing. And I thought, every time I had to hit that piece of steel with that hammer, I could just see that. I could see him hitting that hammer and hitting that head of that nail, and it going into his hand. And I think today, you know, we watch people build houses and we think these nails that they use and how they're perfectly round and symmetrical. But I thought, this is what we made. The measurements on them was supposed to be between 5 and 7 inches long. I think we got this in about 5 3/4. But I thought there ain't nothing symmetrical about that. I thought every time that they hit that into his flesh, it ripped. And we need to think about that every day. Because that's what he did for us. And I know celebrating Easter is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But I thought today we were truly saved by from our sins. I thought in Mark chapter 15 is one of the chapters that it talks about the crucifixion. And Mark wrote down that he said, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? I thought right at that very instant The Lord had to look away, and I know he felt that because he wouldn't have said it if he didn't. Because at that time, he took the whole weight of the world on his shoulders that you and me could be saved. Where it's good to celebrate his resurrection, it's a wonderful thing. I don't want to take anything from that. But I thought today is the day that we found salvation. And I hope and pray something that I've read will touch your heart. And as you read this, I would ask that you close your eyes and you would think about it after you get finished. And just imagine every strike of that hammer ripping flesh from a man that never knew sin. There was never a guile word found in it. And I hope that you'll tell some sinner person this same story, and that you'll read all 4 Gospels. If you want to, you can write these down in Matthew, the 27th chapter, Mark, the 15th chapter, the 23rd chapter of Luke, and the 19th chapter of John. I'd ask today, if you're listening to me and you're not saved, that you give your heart and soul to the Lord. Because you're looking at a man that knew much sin. I prided in knowing sin. I was proud of the things that I had done. But I thought one day the Lord have mercy on me, and he changed me completely. And he let me know love that I'd never known. He let me look at people that I had hated for years. He let me look at them and tell them that I was sorry and that I loved them. Just like he loved me. I love you and I pray for you. And I ask that you pray for us. And that maybe not long, we can all get to be together. But I thought, share this with some sinner person. I just begged of you. Please do that. We can read in James where it said if we lead one sinner to be saved, that it will cover a multitude of sin. And I want to lead as many as I can because I sure had an abundance in my life. But I thought we also can read in Isaiah, it says when he saves us, that he cast that sin as far as the east is from the west, to never be seen again. And for him, it'll never be thought of. But I didn't want to take up much of your time today. I just wanted to share that with you because I love you. And I love the Lord. Thank you very much.